He's got-
Okay.
Thank you. Lindsay and,
Let's say Lee Davis. Remember that?
It's like we did
Barbara?
up there. I think
No.
so.
Mark Consultant.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking.
Help me out. What's her name? Playsets.
Yeah.
Randy.
Brandon.
Who's that at the bottom?
Interesting.
Yeah,
To watch.
I'll shoot them both an email tomorrow, see if that can be worked out.
Yeah, it might be easy. Isn't
I wonder if, we could even have one, I would think it would be easier to have it on the survey website itself.
it? Yeah, there's somewhere like people like to see
Yeah,
things fill
you are survey number 1,997.
It did, like the
Lindsay
bank
needs
account.
Three more to get her
Start
there.
from 100 or 1,000.
Dave, you gonna need me tonight?
I don't know.
Should I pay attention?
Dan is remote.
I'm here.
Where are you, Dan?
I'm in Myrtle Beach.
it. Oh, lucky
Oh,
him.
lucky you.
I was in the ocean this afternoon.
Will you shut off this weed, please?
How was the weather in Myrtle Beach?
I don't wanna
It
hear
was
it.
about 72 today. Beautiful day. I was in the ocean, so it was a nice day.
That's good.
I'm certain that Kurt will be here. I'm fairly certain that Kate will be here. I don't think Phil is coming.
I got my glasses in my car.
You can go get them.
Well, I think it's time.
We do have a quorum, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 is a quorum,
Um,
and you can elevate him.
Jim, why don't we elevate you for the moment? And
If one more person comes in,
if we have 7 people around, or 6 people around the table plus Dan,
then I can daydream.
you know, you can daydream. Absolutely.
Well, we have 4 with Dan.
Right, we have a quorum.
Yeah.
But, you know, the more people, the merrier. And if we have 5 people, you know, there's a tiebreaker in there. Should Chris's subdivision become very contentious.
Yeah.
Irregular shape. Anyhow, so let's get started. This is the Enfield Planning Board. It is November 10th, 2021. It's a couple of minutes after 7, and we are in the DPW conference room. And one of our members, Dan Kiley, is on Zoom. So roll call attendance from my left.
Linda Jones.
I'm David Frack.
Eric Russell.
Good morning.
Okay, Jim, we're gonna call you a voting member for tonight, since we seem to be short on a couple of people.
Kate is just
And
short.
on Zoom, okay, here we have Kurt. No, I'm sorry.
Is Kate coming?
She's right there.
She's right there.
Aha.
Okay.
Do you know how?
All
I'm
right.
gonna take your chair.
Phil's not coming.
So we have 2 people, 2 members on Zoom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're still elevated.
Okay. Yep, that's fine.
So on Zoom, we have Dan Kiley. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
And Kate Stewart.
Hello.
All right. We have a visitor on Zoom by way of Lee Davis. Did I get the name right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so. Barbie, okay, you can see it right there. That's fine. Anyone from the public have any comments that do not relate to the agenda items? In other words, if you're not here for the hearing or the discussion on zoning ordinance changes and amendments, now is your time to speak. Okay? Kate, select board report, please. Kate? Are you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. Okay. Y Valley has got a kind of unstable connection tonight, and it's saying that right now. So if I get bounced, I'm very sorry. So select board met on November 1st. David was there to give us an update on a community workshop and updating on the master plan. So that was great. Thanks for doing that, Dave. And Kurt talked to us about streaming meetings, and we're going to be trying to look at just broadcasting the Zoom for now as a first step, and we're going to do a test pilot with the select board meeting. Eventually that'll affect planning board if the test pilot goes well, because meetings will also be live streamed. Recreation Commission came with a proposal to convert the 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time position, and we'll be meeting with the budget committee. Took a quick look at some upcoming capital reserve funds, some proposed policy, personnel policy updates to make us a little bit more competitive, advanced education and college tuition reimbursement that gives us a little bit of a degree incentive. And then we did some reassignments of folks to committees and accepted some donations.
Okay. Any questions for Kate? All right. Next, review of the October 27 minutes. Everybody had a chance to read them.
I have a couple things.
Linda, go ahead, please.
On line 97, it says they plan to put in a 4-bay car wash. However, on line 137, it says there'd be a 2 car wash bays.
I think it is 2.
I
Isn't it
thought it was
2?
4.
You thought it was 4?
I did. I caught the error and I thought it was 4.
I recall too.
I recall 2 as well. I don't think there's enough room for 4. That's big.
Yeah, always the storage sheds might be 4
There were 4 storage
buildings
units.
for storage
Yeah.
sheds. I'm pretty sure it was a 2-bay. Well,
Well,
I mean, it was
indicated-
conceptual, so you can just do 2/4.
Also just limit the number of days.
Yeah, right.
A
just a
car
car
wash.
wash.
Conceptually wise, it's a car wash.
Right,
Car wash,
okay.
Right, because that's a conceptual, so,
That's certainly an easier way to handle it.
yeah, no.
On 120, line 126, isn't it Flanders Street,
Two.
not Flanders Avenue?
Yes. It's 2.
Okay, so 126 should be Flanders Street. And there was another one that had Flanders Street too. What?
Line 140.
Yes. Line 140, Flanders Street.
Is that it, Linda?
Well, it may be self-correcting. Line 212. Mr. Russell also suggested the addition of changing LED signs once per day. Later, he clarified what he meant below, so maybe that's. Later, it says on line 232, no more than once per 24-hour period, so.
Do we want to delete the first reference?
It was an ongoing conversation.
Because it's okay, because it's corrected itself.
Well, I think it's representative of, I mean, I'm fine either way. It's representative of the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah, we're going, just, what do we want?
Yeah, so that's what I had.
Anybody else have any comments? I have a couple. Line 95. Property formerly of Brownie's Auto, it still is. And until the actual sale goes through,
Oh,
it's owned by Brownie's. And
the
Rob,
strike
could you hold
formally.
up that map again for me? So the way I'm looking at it, and I may be wrong here, the car wash is entirely in the CB.
Correct.
And on line 100, it says part of the car wash would be in the R1 zone.
That's the
So
storage.
it's actually, all of the car wash is in CB, and part of the storage, self-storage units would be in R1.
Actually, quite a small part.
Oh, those are my comments.
Oh, I did have one more thing, and it's line 113, 114. He suggested that Mr. Bergeron and Mr. Bergeron may want to try for a variance. And just to be consistent, they were referred to as Mr. B. Bergeron and Mr. R. Bergeron, a couple of paragraphs up.
Anybody else have anything on minutes? Would like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes for October 27th, 2021 as corrected.
I'm second
Mark
that.
seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
They were all yeses.
No.
Oh, Kate,
Kate is abstaining. Because she wasn't here.
Kate's abstaining.
Okay. Next. Hearing. Enfield land use case P 211101. Mark Kenny is seeking minor subdivision approval to create 2 lots from 1 on Oak Hill Road, map 12, lot 21-1. Subject property is in the R5 zone district and is currently 11.4 acres. Lot A is proposed to become 6.42 acres, and Lot B is proposed to become 5.03 acres. Mark Kenny is property owner, and he will be represented in this land use case by Chris Rollins, licensed land surveyor. Let me get my large copy of the map out. And Chris, you want to describe the subdivision property for us, please?
Okay, as David said, I'm Chris Rollins, land surveyor representing Mark Kenny. Mark owns 11.45 acres on Oak Hill Road. It has a garage, a driveway, power lines into the garage. The lot itself was created by minor subdivision back in 2000. And then it went through a minor, not a minor, 2008. So the most recent division was 2008. So we're okay on the 5-year limit on minor subdivision. Mark would like to create one extra lot of 5 acres with a proposed driveway off Oak Hill Road. The road is very straight and flat. Visibility is not impaired at all there, so the driveway should be very safe. We haven't done any soils work, but in my experience, the back part, the part beyond this pin, first pin, is a very nice area. When I create a lot, I'd like to imagine where I would build, if I would like to live with it. And it's very nice back in this back 3/4 of an acre, 3/4 of the lot. You're away from all your neighbors, pretty much. And there's quiet. Soils appear to be quite well drained. You don't see any roots clinging to the top of the ground. I would estimate probably a 3-foot water table there. As you get closer to the road, all the way up through here, the road is really kind of a source of a little bit of wetness. And so there's no wetland on there that I saw, but it's a little bit closer to the surface by the road. And that goes also for the adjoining lot from down along Lost Peter Road. Culverts that go in there. But this section isn't impaired with that. I did, while I was sitting in the car, I flashed the plan open and I noticed a typo, which I would like, if this board does approve this subdivision, I would like to correct and bring in some corrected plans. Over on this lot configuration, I called where it's split in half. I call that a 6.02, but it's 6.42. I'm happy to let it go because it doesn't, but because it doesn't really take away from the description, which is correct on the main plan. But I'm also happy to correct it and bring it.
We're gonna do a Mylar anyhow.
Yeah.
We have that with you?
I get it, but, you know, I'm happy to correct it. Just want to let you know. I guess Mark's intent is, because we don't really need to discuss that, but I think he's going to put that on the market, that the new lot, so there are properties that are needed these days. The market is good.
Absolutely.
So
So it is.
I guess that's about all I have to say.
Okay, board members have any questions or comments on the proposal? Bert?
Just two questions, really, not too serious, just more, just how it plays out. And, on, I guess, in the deed itself for the current parcel, there's restrictions on single and double wide mobiles. And so that means mobile homes.
That's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
So I don't try to interpret it. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that was for this parcel pre-subdivision. So from, it'd be more for the building, for the minutes for the building inspector. Does that carry over onto both lots now?
I would presume it would be on both properties. I'm not an attorney, but I think that's.
Yeah,
how
that's,
that would go.
that's what I was like, so what
Yeah.
happens there?
Yeah, that's the whole, if it's encumbered, it would go with both, and there may be some technical reason why it's not. But that's beyond my.
Yeah, okay.
expertise.
And my other question is, there's also this reserved right from drawing from a well. Do you see any well that might have been referenced?
No, that was something that was on this whole Nichols subdivision.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's I'm sure there's a well someplace,
Mhm.
but cars are no
Yeah.
way, so you just, everybody has to cover themselves.
Yeah, so it just gets carried through in the deeds.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my only questions I had.
Anything from you, Eric? No. Linda,
No,
Dan, anything?
I'm good.
And Kate, anything?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Excuse me. All right, in that case, I will declare the public hearing closed.
Did you ask? if She wanted to? speak?
Lee, did you have any comments you wanted to make on this? I can't hear you. You're muted. Lee, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
The lower left
can we
corner.
unmute on this
I
one?
think I can ask her to unmute.
No, still can't hear you.
I got it.
There you go.
There we go.
No, Lee Davis here. No, I was just interested he mentioned not wet land, but that the land was wet. Is that what he said?
Is that the way you characterize it?
Well, no, it's not wet. You wouldn't get wet, and it's not a wetland. It, the water table is higher. Soils, of course, are categorized a lot. One of the categories is the presence of water and how close it is to the surface. Near the road, it's a little flat in there. Water doesn't drain away as quickly as it does in the back part. So I would expect the water table out here to be maybe 2 feet down. Or out in the back, in the western part, it's probably 3 feet down. So it's not a wetland. You don't need boots or anything. Or there's no vernal pool.
I thought that's what you meant when you said the land was wet. I just wanted it clarified, just to make sure I heard it right. That's all. Thank you.
There are some wet areas in some of the other lots near these culverts that cross the road, but we don't have that problem.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
now we'll again declare the public hearing closed. Board members, discussion?
I'm good.
Everybody good? Dan? We're good?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
Kate?
I'm so good. Thank you.
All right. First question that I have for the board is, are you willing to accept the incorrect acreage on the inset? Or would you like Chris to do another Mylar, or would crossing it out and correcting it with his initials and date be satisfactory? Anybody have anything to say?
I'm good with crossing initial of the record of deeds is okay with that on that, my law. And the other ones that really have probably final word on my law.
Yeah, I would prefer not to do that. I would prefer to correct it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Appreciate that. We're, I was just trying to offer it to you as an option. This is certainly, if we get the thing signed tonight.
I'm not sure whether the registry would accept it. They used to, the planning boards used to scribble all kinds of stuff on
Yeah.
maps.
Yes.
And hopefully those days.
I think for your paper copy, just a little end correction.
Yeah.
So you don't have for the files.
Yeah,
That'd be added, fine.
that's good.
Okay. Do we need to condition this upon an approved septic permit? Rob,
I would say no.
okay,
Is it 5 acres? There's a cutoff point the state uses.
yeah, I thought it was 5,
Five.
but
It's 5.
Okay, and we're at 5.03, so we've got that threshold. Anything else the board would like to add by way of conditions? If not, somebody please make a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minor subdivision of the Mark W. Kenny property, map 12, lot 21-1, as presented. With, with their corrected Maylaw.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it is unanimous.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for coming
Great
in,
to see you.
Chris.
Yep. Thank you.
Appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
Yeah. We miss you.
I'll, so we can get along with just with the paper ones. I just.
Yeah.
I think that's.
If you want to
Files,
give me
that's
a
fine.
corrected Mylar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
And
get that.
how many copies of the paper copies do you need, Ron?
I've got 2 in my folder, so that's usually enough,
All right.
as we've
so-
discovered. But if you want to leave a couple more, we'll keep them.
No,
Yep,
we've got somebody coming
somebody's trying to come in. It's Sealy.
Or is it Mabel Schwartz?
That's a trivial pursuit
Mabel
question.
Schwartz, see?
That's a trivial pursuit question for the infield edition. Who is Mabel Schwartz?
So when I bring them up, if I bring some papers too,
Yeah.
can you sign those when you have a chance?
Yeah.
As well as the Mylar?
Yeah. We'll get the chair to sign off for you.
And that way. You know the Mylar.
Yeah,
We do.
Rob will, yeah.
We do. Let me just check. We already got our fees from you. We did. Yep.
All right, so I'll probably have the decision written over the weekend. So that'll be ready, for signing, and whenever we can get the corrected Mylar. We'll get everything out together.
No, we're closed tomorrow. So,
Okay.
yeah. At any other time. Worry about it.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great evening.
Yes.
Appreciate you coming in.
No, I-
Okay, next we have a discussion of proposed zoning ordinance changes and amendments. Kurt, so you're gonna lead the discussion on this.
All right.
Let's go.
Everybody have their thing?
The one labeled final draft.
Yes.
Final draft 10/27/2021. Yes. So I basically I made some changes probably from the last meeting. On page 1, there's everything we've already agreed to and accepted. So that's still good to go. Page 2, I believe, same. The, we made any changes since several meetings ago on that one. And then business, that's page 3. That's still what it's been all along.
Sure. I have a question or comment on the community business district change.
Yep.
In our workshops, surveys, and the community meetings that we had over the weekend, it seemed to me that there was overwhelming desire to focus on Main Street generally and to develop it as a kind of mixed use, commercial, retail in residential area. Um, And that certainly seems to me personally like the direction that the town should go. That being the case, I would ask, why are we taking this out? If we're only gonna probably put it back in, once we have a master plan that says this is the mixed use, commercial, retail, residential area.
Well, this covers all of the CD, not just Main Streets.
Right.
And it's, well, actually, no, because it's,
Well-
no, actually, I'm correct, I'm stand corrected. This is a subparagraph from the CD. This requires that this be done. If it's eliminated, it makes it an option.
If we intend to drive commercial, residential, mixed use, in my opinion, keeping the requirement as it is the way to go. Maybe other board members feel differently. I'd like to get people's thoughts on it.
I think it's. I think with it deleted, it gives more flexibility to a developer. And it's been there for over 5 years, probably close to 10 now. And you can see what's been produced.
Well, what has it produced? Other than the Davidson property,
Mhm.
has there been any other issue? Where,
Oh, nothing's gone in. It's no commercial, new commercial has gone in with residential above.
well, you haven't had any turnover until this fall when Marigold moved out,
Mhm.
so. I don't know. I think we should leave it in. Eric, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with providing more flexibility. I kind of wonder if this is, given how many changes we have, is this one we should leave till after the master planning efforts, which would just be until next year, hopefully. Because it is a sort of a substantial, well, I mean, it's a meaningful change.
Mhm.
It was put in at the request of Enfield Village Association, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Dan probably has
Yes.
Yes,
memory on this one.
it was.
And as far as the impacts of removing it, I think it would have less impact on whether or not new businesses come in and more impact on businesses, buildings that have existing businesses like the laundromat. This would allow that to just be, this would make housing be by right there as opposed to by special exception or that might be the only, or I guess that might be the only building. You still get a crack at them with site plan, because Yeah, it's a no, but- change. Yeah. But I'm just saying. Yeah. It's like, right, what properties does this actually affect? Yeah. It affects the Copeland lot, it affects the laundromat, it affects Ergo, that building, which would affect that immediately. It does affect the woodworking shop as well. The largest,
It would affect the, actually all of Davidson's buildings.
Right.
But yeah, but those are already. Jim Kelleher's proposing a development of the land that he owns. Yep. Right, but aren't Davidson's already have the special exception? 60 and 62, I've already got it.
Yeah,
Right, I'm trying to think like the practical, Yeah. like on a practical level of Yeah. what properties would this impact. I know one thing that I've said, if it is converted to residential, I think there's a feeling like once it's gone, it's never coming back. But I don't agree with that, because if you upgrade those to, have a shower and a kitchen, they can easily be turned back into businesses, because a kitchen and a shower in a business is actually a good thing. People would want that for a break room or, for employees that go for runs on their lunch hour, those are the kind of things that might make an office space even nicer. So I just don't think it's,
I think there was a feeling, and I can't speak exactly to their motivations back then, that once it was converted, it was gone, you know, it was like, it could never come back for multi-use. It was residential, and that was it.
Well, I agree, you know, once it is converted, it can be converted back.
Yeah.
But we have the whole process of waiting until a tenant decides to leave
Yeah.
and not renewing the lease or whatever.
Yeah.
And if we leave it at, or if we take this provision out, then a building owner, a landlord would probably become a little bit more motivated to find a commercial or retail tenant. Just
I
an
think
idea. Linda?
the original thought was being part of the Main Street program and how the philosophy of a mixed neighborhood and was to have the ground floor be commercial and above it residential. But there was reality that happened, and that was that businesses didn't want to be on Main Street. And the few that were there didn't quite make it. And so it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
It didn't help.
Right, and like I said, with it in, the way it's currently worded in zoning, it's a requirement except by special exception, which is another burden on the developer. Where if it's removed, they can still put commercial there if they choose. If they can get more money for commercials, and that's what they want to do, that's what it'll go there. But it would keep saying there's a need for housing. So this would allow by right apartments on the first floor,
But there are already apartments on the first floor.
or on the other building.
In some of the buildings, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Well, you know, this goes to public hearing and we should see what comments we get then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of looking at, it was a good idea, but it just doesn't seem to be working, and the thoughts originally was that wanted to encourage more housing in town. And this was preventing this. So,
Can I just weigh in for a second?
Please. Go ahead.
So I think it's, normally I would support removing this because also I think it takes away some of the rights of the property owner to discern how their property, which at one point was somewhat residential for many years, gets used. But I think there's a lot of unclear messaging, and I'm not blaming anybody, but anytime you're talking about change and talking about ideas turn into rumors, right? And then we find out that they're gonna put an interstate on Blockhaven the next thing we know. I'm kidding, just for a note. And so I wonder if it won't add to the confusion to modify, to rescind it, modify it, and then next year perhaps make another modification. And where we're looking at a pretty long ballot, this might be one of the ones that instead of doing it and then doing it again. So I don't know where we're going to land. I just wanted to toss that out there.
I mean, if it's, I'm okay either way. I mean, I'm not bound to this. It doesn't affect me personally. I don't own property down there, so I have no stake in the game, if this is there or not. But I do think with the master plan that there should be a separate village zone. And defines probably where the water sewer lines are most are. And this would fall in that district. So maybe then it's a complete rewrite for that district. And this would be changed then.
Rob, you want to weigh in? As the administrator?
Well, I've given you a little bit of my opinion. I think that I was contacted by the owner, Dr. Hedelman, of the Arago property, and he was actually intending to come in or the special exception that convert his, just to give him the flexibility to do either or. And I think that he's actually sold the property. He has a buyer or had a buyer. I think it's already happened. So I'm not sure what the new owners will do. We've actually been contacted by a company that's doing a level 1 brownfields assessment on the site. It sounds like new owners doing their due diligence just to sort of assure themselves that it's clear and clean. But we'll see what happens. I was very close to having another engineering firm lined up, actually based in Meriden, a guy that worked at Criari. I think I told you that story. A guy named Ramsey, Mark Ramsey, was looking at it. So we were kind of excited because it was almost like a 1-for-1. They're very similar to Ergo, because Ergo, I think Nabil used to work at Criari, and so it was this close, but I guess it was just too much. He was thinking of trying to buy it, and it all fell through. But like I said, my communications with Dr. Hedelman and others, that my opinion is if it's flipped over to residential and 10 years down the road, all of a sudden there's a huge demand for office space. I can see all those units that we've converted to residential could be made available. And they're just gonna be that much nicer for office space with a kitchen and a shower. I mean, that's basically the difference between those units. And, we've seen what they did at Mike Davidson's. I actually got to see some of those units before they rented them. And they did a nice job, actually. It was gentrification really of the units. They'd put in stainless steel appliances and new flooring and painted the places. And so they made some pretty decent units compared to what they were before. So flexibility is great. I agree with Kate. It's probably not a good idea to go back and forth a few times. So maybe this is the one, as Eric said, that we just sort of set aside and kind of come back to it.
So I'm hearing Kate, Eric, and myself saying, let's leave it in, set it aside. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of like Kurt. If you want to put it off until the master plan, we can do that. I mean, personally, I would have voted to get rid of it because I think it has been a hindrance. But we can wait a year.
Well, at this point, we're only talking about, putting it before the public at our public hearings.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we can get rid of the change. It'll make the ballot smaller.
Is everybody comfortable with taking the 401.4 paragraph 5 off of our proposed list?
I am, because at the present time, if we don't prevent anyone from putting residential on the first floor, but the process is a step longer.
Yeah. Okay, so accept.
Okay.
I only brought this up because somebody brought it up. That's why.
Mhm.
And,
Well, like I said, the master plan is actually moving forward now. And hopefully in a year or two, we'll be making some serious zoning changes. And it can be, we look at then.
mhm. Okay, continue, Kurt.
401.5 is simply just fixing the paragraph so it makes sense. 40.
Can I
Oh,
just,
G, I'm
can I
sorry,
just-
G, yeah.
that's just a formatting thing? I don't think that needs to go on the
No,
ballot.
no, but it was just something I caught when I was going
Okay.
through, and I don't want to have it fall through the cracks.
Okay.
So it's just on this sheet here.
Yep.
401.5, number 2, use restrictions, H, just delete that whole thing. I think we agreed that was something to do. thing is the village plan alternative to delete that option since we have a cluster development option already. And then we get into signs. Page 4, number 408C. Now, I came up with, I'm assuming this is the correct title. If it's wrong, correct me. For Rob's title is Land Use Economic Administrator, is that correct?
Land use and community development administrator.
Community development.
Yeah.
They changed
But we could, I mean, that's one too that I think, I mean, land use administrator is my title as well. I mean, it's just basically there's
What do
multiple.
you typically, what's your phone message, Shay?
What's that?
What's your phone, when someone calls you on the phone,
It says land use and community development administrator.
land use and community development. Okay, well, just typo then.
That's all right.
Have you noticed how we can never remember it all
Yeah.
after all this time?
Well, so, I mean, like I said, I mean, technically I am the land use administrator. I mean, it is my title.
That was showed up somewhere. I don't know where
Yeah.
that might have been off the webpage.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we went through a couple years ago when we did zoning changes and we swapped out anywhere it said zoning administrator, we changed it to land use administrator.
Yeah.
Because that's the term that we're using nowadays to sort of all encompass, not just zoning, but planning as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, 408D. I think I got what we agreed to. This is, how the signs will be illuminated. Did someone see something I missed or should have added or not added?
grammatical question.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if this is correct or not.
no, I'm first to ask.
Well, hopefully we have a grammarian somewhere.
Two from the zoning board.
Our last paragraph, should display messages be changed to displayed messages? I'm not sure.
They're referred to display itself, not the message.
Well, we're talking about the messages that should not be changed. Leave it as is.
There's one thing I'd like to mention that I didn't think of before, and that is that we have a lot of historic homes in our historic district, and we really should address having lighting and signage that is in line with the streetscape. I don't know how you put that in here. Other towns have it in there in the special regulations for historic district.
And so we don't have a historic district in that field.
Oh, well, yes, we do.
Not by zoning regs. We have a, whatever you want to call it, that Meredith has been working with in the Historical Society, but we have an area with historical homes and stuff, but there's not a zoning historical district that regulates what someone can and cannot do.
Well, you're confusing district with regulations. We have the district. It's one of the largest in the state. And we have a second one, which is over at the Shaker Museum. So
Okay,
those are the districts we have.
okay.
And what we don't have is any special regulations for them. And the reason is to be able to become a certified local government. And the reason for that is that you're eligible for grants that are much, much larger. instead of 50,000 or 200,000, they can go up into millions. And so that's how small towns end up renovating it. At Franklin, it renovated a whole theater and a block. I mean, they became a certified local government. And anyway,
Yeah, back to the original question is. I'm not gonna sit down and write something for that because it's so
Right.
late. And, or even. look
well, I
for-
think it belongs in a different place, I guess.
Maybe that's something that we should incorporate into the master plan. And from that specific regulations could flow.
Do we really want to get into, as a town, the differentiating between different parts of towns for things like signs and lighting? I'm just asking that general question because, Canaan they don't have zoning, but they have their one historic district. And it's hard to explain to people why one section of town has one thing and one has another. Can we not make something that's friendly enough for our town that we wouldn't mind seeing it everywhere?
I don't think that it's unfriendly what Canaan Street has. And they have something special there to protect. And if you read their zoning regulations for Canaan Street, you'll find that they're very similar to ours.
One of,
In Enfield.
One of our residents, full-time Enfield residents, also has a property on Canaan Street that they're responsible for, and spoke to me about the concerns they had about how restrictive and how picky they were there, and whether we were going to be picking at historic homes here and making it so people couldn't live in and enjoy, like, even if they need to put a new window in their sheds. So I think that's something to think about, whether we're going to really get into picking at people who are in a historic area. We could be like Salisbury, or we could be Enfield.
In this sign ordinance, was section, there's no sign ordinance, and the sign illumination is a town-wide thing, so it would be mostly affecting the commercial properties. Because that's the ones that would be putting up these type of signs. But it is a town-wide zoning ordinance, so I mean, as far as something for a special section of town, I'm not ready to, I think that should come out of the master plan also, if that's where the town wants to go.
I think there's enough language in the ordinance, in the sign ordinance, as we're going to massage it to be, that would provide for review of signs, and if it was in a residential area or there was a residence next to it, I think we would be able to exert some control over the sign. Is that correct, Kurt? The way you're drafting this?
Yeah, I mean, this is strictly signs, so it's not, has nothing to do with lights in general.
Right,
So this is just a sign that's displaying a message.
right.
So, yeah,
So, I mean, if there was a sign that was too bright and was, constantly shining into somebody's.
well, you mean what you currently have on the books, or this?
No, what we're trying to.
Okay,
move
okay,
to.
okay, I just want to clarify, yeah. Yeah, what we have on the books is seriously lacking in saying,
Right.
be able to say no. Yeah, I mean, it's, like you said, I think this covers what we are proposing, covers any situation that might come up. And if it doesn't, then we'll find out.
I think so. I think it gives us a mechanism that if we see a problem, we can modify what the applicant is asking for.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does that give you a little bit more level of comfort, Linda?
I can see your point.
Okay. Let's keep going.
All right, so page 5, hours at the top of the page goes along with 408 sign illumination. And then, 408, 0.2. Okay, that's just direct white lighting. That's what I currently say. And that would be replaced with the sign illumination stuff. 4085, sign permit requirements. 408.7 enforcements will be deleted and then replaced with the new language. Starting at the bottom of the page, sign permit procedures and enforcements.
I have a couple of questions on that paragraph, Kurt.
Mhm.
Where you say any changes to signs shall require a new permit. What are you getting at? Are you,
Yeah,
I mean, I could interpret this as if I have an LED sign that I can program the messages on, do I need a permit for every new
okay,
message?
yeah. Yeah, this is, I don't believe I changed the wording from what I was copying. So I think I understand what they're trying to do there, but yeah, I can see where it could be interpreted differently. Any changes to the physical structure of the sign, maybe?
Modifications.
Yeah, it's not the length, it's not the wording of this, it's not the
It's
message.
not the message.
It's not the message, it's the physical sign. So,
Design.
30 modifications.
Structural modification.
It's also not just structural, it would also be cosmetic. So, I mean, well, I think what you're getting at, right, is these changes relative to the messages, doing the different word here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so modifications to the physical sign.
yeah, I think I would
Okay,
choose.
so physical modifications of the sign shall require a new permit.
Yeah, right, because we're not dealing with what they're saying. on the
Right.
sign. It's, if you're going from a plain sign with no lights to a sign with lights, that's a change.
Physical design, I think is probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah, how would you interpret that as the person who would have to
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
get asked a question, what language would make it?
Yeah,
easier to
I'm thinking
explain to
physical
the
design.
applicant, this is. Without the applicant turn around and say, no, this is what I think it means. What you just? what word did you-
Physical design.
Physical design.
Any modifications to the physical design of the sign?
Rob, last meeting, we talked about, you have a sign permit form.
Yep.
You can share with us.
I do. Do that right now.
I had one other question on this paragraph, Kurt,
Uh-huh.
and they, application for sign permits involving non-residential sites shall be made concurrently with site plan applications to the planning board. My question is, A, what if there is no
You mean
site
it's on the
plan
website?
involved?
Oh,
For instance, the gentleman that bought the Raphael's Cucina property precipitated this whole discussion. You know, he's just talking about putting up a sign initially. Without any information or even concept, a concept of what he's gonna do with the rest of the property. So there's not necessarily a site plan involved with that. Or if there's just a change in the sign, as in the previous paragraph, where a permit needs to be obtained. You know, it just kind of muddies the water by saying that it has to be made concurrent with the site plan application.
Well, it says applications for sign permits involving non-residential sites. So,
Let's assume that 99% of signs would be non-residential.
well, what I'm interpreting that to mean is, if someone's coming in with a site plan and they're gonna have signs, then it's part of the process of the site plan review. Now, if they just want to put up a sign on an empty lot, then they go to the zone.
Maybe we need to flip that around then. If the site plan applications will include, sign, I mean, I'm sort of agreeing with you.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like what you're trying to do is actually the inverse of what it says,
Yeah,
where we want site plan reviews to include the intended sign,
Okay, so site
but
plan,
not that signs require site plan review.
right,
Which is what occurs.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just kind of flip it around. Say, where site plan, I'm just thinking out loud here, where site plan application, okay, site plan applications should include sign permit application where possible.
when needed, well,
Where
when needed, when needed.
What if the sign says visit Robles Mine?
We don't control the message.
We don't control- So we allow billboards and stuff.
If you were in Vermont, that would be off premises advertising. That would be forbidden.
Mhm.
I don't know that we have a prohibition against billboards.
But we have the
Signs, yeah.
the
signs,
Signs, right,
yeah.
right. Instead of telling we have signs, but we can't control the message.
Right. So if somebody wants to put up a billboard that says
it's limited to the size.
it's limited to the size and, setbacks. I mean, if somebody wants
I
to
guess
put
I
up a
won't
sign
approach
that
them
says,
after
elect Big Bird for Senate, they certainly could do that. It's within their rights on a commercial property, right? So I'm feeling that's a non-issue.
Like your thing, Ron, so. Like the site plan review. So how about sign? Sign permit review shall be part of the
Which site plan application for the planning board should include applications for sign permits. And they can say we don't have any sign permits, don't need any.
Right, we're not-
Or they
Or
can
they can
say,
include the ones
they can
that
say, yeah, we're gonna have a sign, but it's really not designed yet. So we come back later. No, right. So I think you got the language nailed. Can you repeat it for?
Yeah, you just read it for her, so. Which version we gonna use?
So I just said, the site plan applications to the planning board should include applications for sign permits.
Where possible.
I would leave that.
Okay.
I would leave that. alone.
Because they can easily just say, we don't intend to have any signs, therefore there are no signs.
Yeah. All right.
Rob, is there a fee for the sign permit?
25,
25,
25.
pretty nominal.
That's set by the zoning board. It's a ZBA fee.
And then I think the rest, some of that gets into what should be on the application and can you change things or add things to this current application if you want. Actually look at the sign application to see.
I've got it up on the screen if you guys want to see
Yeah.
it. So it starts with, and this is the sign application that we've had for many, many years. So
Yeah, yeah. Just gonna read through and see if it's everything in here is actually on there, if you want to add something, or name, address, phone, fax, email, authorized agents.
Lee, we can hear you. Could you mute?
Let's see something.
Talking on the telephone. Thank you.
Location, position. I don't know if all that's really needed. I think it's method of illumination, yes. Size and height, yes.
Total area including supports. That seems a little unclear to me. I think what we want to look at is the area of the sign itself. And then we have a separate thing that says the height.
Well, I would interpret that as you have posts coming up, the sign's attached to it, you measure from the outside of the post to outside of the post. Not what someone's gonna call the sign inside the post.
And this is our existing application, so Rob's
Yeah.
already using this
Yeah.
successfully.
I think the most important is that height from the ground. It's, right now it's limited to, I think it's 12 feet. So.
So if I want to put up a 4x8 sign, 32 square feet, which is, I think, a pretty common size for signs. And they're on 4x4 posts, or between two 4x4 posts. I've got to add 8 inches to the width. And if the posts stick up 6 inches above the sign, I've got to add that. And that's going to reduce my signage.
Or
I think-
redesign the sign.
So I think, judging just by my interpretation of it is it's simple supports are not really that impactful, but if you have something like, well, we have one, there's one down here with it's trees with a bear climbing up, and so the sign supports become more important, and consequential in that case. Do you see what I'm saying? 4x4s won't add too much in terms of
Right.
surface area.
I guess I'm looking at it from the sign side. of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Just makes it-
which I do too.
It's just, I know
Yeah,
you do.
yeah.
It just makes it a little more
Yeah,
more difficult and I think not consistent with the way other cities and towns in the upper valley.
yeah. So for me, it would be as a sign maker, the substrate, which is the actual,
Yeah,
that's the sign, not the supports and,
right.
But that's what we got when I got here. It was already, if you want to strike that language about the supports, I would
I
not.
would suggest you change it, but that's the sign that you're signing.
The other thing, is that when this application is successful, the application is not the compliance document. That's still Rob interpreting the regulation, and we may want to, I mean, if it's working, it's working. Why would
Yeah,
we-
yeah.
Why would we mess with it?
And like I said, I never actually downloaded what the current application is.
Do we even need to define the application in the zone one? Or is it just that we have an
Yeah.
application and it's Rob's
Yeah,
responsibility
you're
to make
right,
sure that the
Yeah.
application.
Right.
Yeah.
meets the zoning ordinance?
I would like to redesign this to include the fee. The fee should be on the application.
Yeah, I mean, when I was proposing, I mean, like I said, it was just a cut and paste of what I copied from the other town, and this is what they spelled out, and
I mean, in my mind, you don't need to define the application. You say there's an application.
Right,
And then it's
fill it out.
part of his job is to
Yeah.
have an application that hits all the different
Yeah.
buttons on, number one, the regulations, then also there probably is some other information, right? Like, did you get the inspection for your electrical system, you know, or whatever, you know,
right,
which is not part
right,
of
right.
this, but
Yeah.
it's part of his job.
And then,
So I wouldn't even, I would. not
right,
even
I
include that.
agree, I would just leave all that off and,
Take it out.
yeah, just say it's go up to, the applicant shall, obtain a permit from the.
Well, you say it right here, the application for sign permit shall be made upon a form provided by the town for this purpose.
Okay, yeah,
And then this, those next two sentences stay. Because just changes, just clarifying the changes to sign about the permit.
Right.
And.
Do we have fillable forms?
That was something I was gonna
That's
talk
gonna be
about.
Rob's job.
Yeah, so
But-
we do not
You-
yet, Kate. I would like to see that. We,
Do you have a full version of Adobe?
we do
I
not.
do.
I do not. Nope.
I have one as well, so it's something I'm happy to help with.
So I would love to do it for all of our forms because it's not just the sign permits, the planning board application, the zoning
I can do that.
CBA application.
I think they would be easier to read when they come in because a lot of folks don't have the ability to self-fill forms unless you put the fields in for them. So you'd get more typewritten ones and maybe more likelihood that they would use the form
Absolutely.
as intended.
yeah, and then you can actually read the handwriting.
Yes, I would like to see that. I
You
would
can
love
read
to
the
do that.
type versus some scribble.
Yeah,
No, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
no, Yeah,
so
How much is a version of Adobe?
I bought mine for half price when I got my new laptop, and I want to say it was $100, so maybe 200 or so. But you might be able to get it through TechSoup. I don't know if we have a TechSoup account.
Not to my knowledge.
it's probably a subscription by now anyhow. isn't
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
Like $15 for a basic. It would let you do that. And then you go off from there and pay it.
I would like to do that.
well, if we're gonna do the zoning document with hyperlinks and stuff like that, then.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a little off topic.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, just get the sign permit and then, and if it's, right, well, all this other stuff not in the zoning, then Bob can change his permit as needed.
So we're just gonna change it, the physical design. We're adding that.
That's up to you.
Okay.
Your last paragraph on page 6 having to do with essentially fines for violation of the sign ordinance. Does Rob have the power to set fees or fines?
I have no clue.
I do.
Kate, can you help us out on that? Who sets fines for ordinance violations?
Fines for ordinance violations?
Select board.
I would say, yeah. I mean, unless it's the state law says otherwise, I'd say usually we're free to set some fines.
I know if we take a zoning enforcement, we can, I mean, we say that our lawyer, our town attorney.
Right.
Can go for a ruling from a judge for fines and, legal fees. And I think that a Superior Court judge can actually set those fees. I know they did it for a case in Plainfield. It was like $100 per infraction. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Rob, we could probably ask Jack.
Yeah,
Do you want to ask Jack? Because he often has a good answer on.
yeah, he's a lawyer.
small
So
ones like
we
that.
can get some free advice from him.
Yeah,
No such thing as free advice.
That's right. And we're paying him.
And
So
we are paying him.
yeah.
No.
okay, we can just delete that last line. And,
I would just wait until we get clarification as to how,
Yeah.
how fines are set and who sets them.
yeah, but if you just delete.
Delete it.
Right, just delete that last line, and it's gonna be, all costs, blah, blah, would be borne by the violator.
Right.
Well, yeah, but do we even know that we can impose fines?
So I would say something like
This is
failure to comply with these regulations would mean you're subject to,
Right, but this is,
penalties.
this is in zoning. so
Yeah,
it's-
any,
it's zoning
just say
violation.
any fines and or penalties, right? Then you
and legal costs.
cover it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, right, and it'll be a zoning violation, so.
Yep.
Whatever wherever those fines come from, or who sets the amounts.
Okay, so I think deleting the last line would take out, any area that we are currently confused about. And just lump it into other zoning violations.
And then actually deletes, so leave that line, but delete the other stuff that's more in the permit stuff.
What, Dan?
I said, just end it at violator, borne by the violator. Doesn't have to say who's gonna set anything.
Yeah, that's what we're basically coming to that. Because it's a
Right.
zoning violation, so whatever the zoning violation fees are, that's what they'd be paying.
Right.
And Kurt, you wanna probably change, in the second to last paragraph, change Rob's title to whatever we decided it was in the beginning, so that there's consistency.
Yeah. Title maybe in other places in the zoning regs also, I don't know if it's. I think someone wants to go through, or just ignore for now.
Is it incorrect to just use the title as land use administrator?
Like I said, I didn't think so.
No, I think that's
Because,
good.
because the title's so long.
Yes. Use a lot of ink.
Yeah,
Of course, you're worth that much ink, but we should use the same thing all the time.
Okay,
We're up to signs.
we're beyond it. I think we're done with Kirk's
Oh, yeah.
document.
All right, so we are done with Burke's.
all right, oh, actually, it was page 7, but we still, you okay with that? Maintenance and obsolescence language.
I like that
I'm just
because,
changing the title.
yeah, we're gonna change the title. I thought that was what we
Yeah.
just talked about. I like it because, I mean, that was something I was insistent on in Lebanon when I was on the task force there. That they had a sign thing and it was really what we're after is quality above anything else.
Mhm.
And I hate to see signs bent over and leaning and rusty and,
Yeah,
you know, a light that's not working. So instead of saying hotel, it says hot L or something like that. Kate,
Yes.
were you starting to say something?
No.
It was Dan.
I was,
Oh, Dan, sorry.
yeah. Personally, I would end it with owner of the property. Because if you start getting into who owns the sign and all of that,
Mhm.
it's up to the property owner. Not, the property owner or the owner, well, it can't be the owner of the sign, it has to be the owner of the property.
Yeah, I agree with Dan.
Well, I think that gets into when places have leases. And
It's still the owner of the property.
Yeah, I think Dan's right on that because it's easier to track down and hold the owner of the property accountable. And if they want to duke it out with their lessee, then that's on them.
It's the owner of the property, who has to
Yeah.
comply with the zoning.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
I like it.
The other
we
thing,
can-
Rob.
And we can
can you
lean
take the
their property.
application Down.
What did you say?
I said, can you take the application down?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Because we on Zoom can only see that.
Okay. Sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Wow, here we are.
We're back. All right.
all right.
And there's a
Um,
lot more of you than there was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So final zoning amendment proposal is the to be called Village Residential District, which is page here.
I think it's great.
There's one little typo on it,
Where's that?
right here in the middle.
Yeah.
Contiguous to a street or 15 parentheses 10 feet from any other lot boundary. Or 20 parentheses 20 feet from the northern rail trail.
Yes, so there are two lots, so that's what as we discussed, we intended that to be 10.
It's supposed to be 10.
Yeah, we intended 10. And then the other one that would have to be made to match what we just talked about is the third from the bottom. I had just copied of the zoning and it says 50 feet is public right away.
Yeah.
We would want to make that consistent with what
Oh, yeah.
is on this page here.
Okay.
So street giving access to the lot.
So the 20 feet should be 50.
No, up on in the center.
Yeah,
No, I'll run through, so I'll just run through the whole thing just to get the sense of where we're at.
okay.
Right, so it's the two lots, and only the two lots on Shed Street that were previously until Public Works. And what we did is we took our current R1 district zoning and we eliminated things that were not residential based.
Mhm.
And then we made a few changes to allow more. So one family, two family, multifamily dwellings connected to sewer and water. So they have to be connected to sewer and water. We left in the home occupations, the private yard sale, those are just things for residential usage. Same with, it's just a bulleting issue, but the same with the accessory uses. We changed minimum lot size. It would have been right now it would be a half an acre for the water and sewer to 1/8. And then the next one, what we intended was located near the 20 feet, you have the lot line contiguous to a street, that's the same as the R1. So it's a setback from the street, and that's the same as R1. We reduced the other lot boundaries to 10 feet, and then went 20 feet from the northern rail trail. And I forget if that's actually more, I think that's actually more than the current R1 restriction. which is-
Yes.
Yeah. yeah,
Which is
because we wanted to
15.
keep
Right.
More
Yep.
distance between the rail trail and
Right.
the building.
So currently on those lots, you can build within 15 feet of the rail trail. This would increase that and add another 5 feet. To the rail trail. And then the height restriction 35 is the same as R1. And that other language is the same as the current. The next paragraph is the same as the current R1, no change. And then we did change the parking spaces to 1 per dwelling unit, with the idea of encouraging additional dwelling units. And then We basically created, one per four, in addition to the one per unit, because you'll need just some additional parking, I guess. And we left the size of the spaces exactly the same as currently. The current R1 need a site plan review when you reach 3 units. We switched that to 5, with the logic being that you can buy either primary mortgage and have your primary residence up to 4 units. So we figured drawing the line between 4 and 5 matched what is currently considered primary residences. And then the width of the lot being 50 feet, that's reduced from the current. And the logic there was that a 1/8 acre lot is basically 50 feet by 100 feet. And that's sort of a common lot size when you go to 1/8 acre lots. And then we just had questions, because these would be new items. As I think about it, I don't think we should include them at this point, but whether we want to include energy efficiency standards or form-based standards for this zone. Personally, I kind of think we should wait until after the master planning to add anything of that nature in. But those are the basic changes that we made from R1 going to this new proposal. And of course, the overall intent is to demonstrate what can happen and provide more flexibility for the select board when they get RFPs for that property.
That's a good summary. Thank you, Eric. Any questions or comments on this draft for a new zoning district? Kate? Your thoughts?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Dan, you good?
The only question I've got is how many accessory dwelling units can they have? This one here says, should it be one per lot?
Well, so ADUs only apply to single-family homes
Okay,
by statute. So if somebody applied for a multifamily, the ADU.
and they can't have an ADU.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Okay, people around the table, sir?
Yeah, I was gonna say up front, I'm not in favor of spot zoning like this. So just in principle,
Neither am I.
just in principle, I don't like that concepts. But I'm not the one who has final say on what happens with this. The A through I, was that referencing what's currently in zoning or?
Yeah, that would have been a cut and paste. You
Yes.
can just double check and make sure that didn't get bungled more, but that was just a cut and paste.
Yeah, okay.
We literally started with the R1 and deleted
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and then edited the,
okay.
what the.
Yeah, I just was like,
Yep.
what's that referring to?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you put in bullets rather than letters.
We did.
Yeah,
And that can be easily changed.
okay, the 1/8 lot, I actually forgot to measure what those lots are, current dimensions are.
I'd have to look exactly what it is. However, that's one where, of course, they'd have a choice, and my hope would be that the select board would take RFPs more on the multifamily dwelling side rather than somebody saying it's segmented out. But they'd have to have 50 feet at the road frontage. According to this, they'd have to have 50 feet. They would be limited by whatever their road frontage is. With 2 acres. Yeah, sorry, something 2 acres. So whatever the road frontage is, they'd have to have 50 feet per lot. But I'd have to look to see what their road frontage is.
So I didn't even do that.
And they can combine the laws as well.
Just a quick
In fact, the
thing.
Select board might want to do that
Yeah.
prior to selling.
Sealy wanted to know where this property was, and I just texted her back, but we can say it. It's the former Public Works facility up into 2002 or 2003 on Shed Street.
The Shed Street public works site.
It's right on the rail trail. There's still a couple of buildings there that will be probably removed prior to sale of the property.
I was referring to the Argo.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
That's
That used to
okay.
be the hardware store.
That's 60.
Next to
Oh, right.
George's.
That's,
Yeah.
the, local business.
I think it's 64 Main Street.
It is,
The valley.
it belongs to the 64 Main LLC.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I did some quick from last night, late at night, last night, I was playing around with what 1/8 of an acre lot looks like. And so I was just doing some square measurements. So, and with your setbacks, if you just, right, you can draw out with a 50-foot road frontage and then going back from there, it's 74 by 74 if you do it perfect squares. And when you subtract all your setback areas or buildable area, you come up with a 32 by 32 foot buildable area. So unless I did my math all wrong.
But it can be looked at in a different way, whereas you combine those two lots for 2 acres, and that gives the developer room to put in, treating it as one lot.
And a typical 1/8 acre lot, if you think, would be 50 feet by 100 feet, which would give a 30-foot wide by 80-foot deep buildable area. Because you lose 10 feet off each side, 20 feet from the front and 20 feet from the back. So you'd have a 30 by 80.
There's the dimensions of the two lots too. If you guys want to look at it there, you can see the dimensions. 153 feet,
Maybe 7.
222 was one of the sides.
This, so they have
My thinking is that select board is gonna like, as in terms of an RFP, multi-family is what it's gonna be, as opposed to subdividing it down to 8-acre lots.
Right, I mean, that's the thing, is when if you're gonna say, someone buys these 2 lots and then they can have on market, so 1/8 acre lot, it's been a mobile home on them, that's what they'll do.
Well, the select board is soliciting development proposals.
Thank you. Yes, we are. So we are soliciting very specific
Go ahead.
proposals. Yeah, we're soliciting, so we have an RFP, and we want to look at very specific proposals that are high density housing. And so it's not to say we want to cram a bunch of small buildings onto teeny lots. We're looking at higher density, which means multiple units, either within multiple buildings or within a larger subset of buildings. There was some talk about giving preference to creativity, pocket park type ideas, things like that, so that you're encouraging use of the rail trail and maybe setting out some parameters like expectations for accessibility, including sidewalks.
I mean, I would be more supportive of selling the lots as is with deed restrictions. Or initial restrictions on the development. That's through an RFP type of requirement.
I think from a environmental and economic standpoint, it makes a lot more sense to encourage development that is very dense in the downtown area. It's walkable, it's accessible to public transportation. And so it obviously lowers the overall environmental impact while it's still taking into consideration that we have a serious housing shortage. You know, we just talked about Main Street and getting maybe what would get you like 1 or 2 units if we possibly change something this year. We'd be looking at a much more significant impact and maybe something a little bit more affordable for folks and more accessible. So.
I think the reason we see the because right now, the only RFPs that they can entertain a lot would be half-acre lots, so only 4 units would be the maximum for that. Like anything else violates the zoning without going through the site plan. Because there would be a zoning. You have to expand our zoning for that, those lots, in order to even obtain these other potential.
Do you remember we contemplated just changing the CB boundary to encompass this property problem with that is it gets into the whole business, allowing businesses at that site in the
Right.
future.
The idea of doing spot zoning, which I agree with you, is, not part of my planning vocabulary. Is to use these two town-owned lots as a demonstration to the community at large as to what can be done to provide denser housing. What is it gonna look like? And, how affordable is it really gonna be? And by having the select board essentially pick a design, town gets what it wants by way of demonstration.
And the select board certainly can't put deed restrictions on, should they choose to. We can't do that with this zone.
Right.
There are two things I want to add. One is one of the examples we talked about was just, and it's not saying this is what we would get, but one of the examples we talked about is as you go into Norwich from Hanover, on the left, there is a pretty substantial but very attractive building that's pretty dense housing that looks historical. So there are definitely ways to do dense housing that would be respectful of, our history and kind of our town culture. So I think that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is we have other properties in this town that eventually we may have to consider doing something with. And one of them I'd like to call your attention to is the end of Johnston Drive. That is across from the mobile home parks. Our town owns 3 lots down there. They are waterfront lots. You never want to sell waterfront necessarily, but you might want to do something that's beneficial to the town. Say, I don't know, like a waterfront restaurant or, I docking, whatever it might be, maybe we need a marina. I'm not saying I know what it is, but that's another example of a place that might benefit from spot zoning, but I would really like to see it tried in this example before I looked at anything else. Those residences at the end of Johnston Drive have a lifetime lease, which sunsets with the life of the current occupant. One of them has already turned it back over to the town. So that's something eventually we're going to have to be taking a look at.
If this goes forward, I would like to see the 1 acre eliminated. And if you just want multifamily housing there, then state that. But when you're saying 1 acre lots, it just means, well, up into 1 acre lot. You can't put a multifamily home on an acre lot. I just don't.
Oh, you definitely can. I mean, if you take a look at Lakeview, a lot of those condos, like if you're looking at narrow townhouses and the way they lay them out in different places, there's some pretty neat ways that they accommodate split levels, things like that, to do these kind of lots.
Yeah. Well, part of it, I think we need a lot size, so we need some lot size, regardless whether, the other advantage in my mind of having an acre lot size is if the select board wanted to carve off a small piece for access. Right. So this would allow them to carve off the 1 acre size piece without, allowed by. So
I mean, they could do that because they currently own the property. They'll say, here's the new property.
Well, no, they couldn't,
because
they couldn't carve off an eighth because the minimum lot size is.
No, they could just move the property on. We do a site plan, subdivision.
We can't create a lot that is less than whatever the.
It would be a right of way to the rail trail. They could do a right of way to the rail trail. A non-buildable lot, and say right of way to the rail trail. Like we said, it's town can do what it wants, but.
So what size lot do you think would be appropriate?
I would go to a 1/4 acre. And that lot that's on the corner of, let's see, here, the bridge. With all the, yeah. with all the
Pillsbury?
roads, 59, lot 59. Lot 59 is a 1/4 acre lot.
Pillsbury comes down right here.
Yeah, lot 59 has that mobile home on it. That's a 1/4 acre lot. a modular home. Proper-
That an old duplex.
Yeah, that's a quarter acre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it could be Union or Pillsbury. It's basically,
I thought it was Malta,
I think technically
but. most
it's
of it
Pillsbury.
was-
I thought
Pillsbury.
Pillsbury turned the corner there.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
42 Pillsbury.
Okay.
I'm obviously in favor of the 8 acre, but.
I agree with you for this purpose.
Yeah, I like 8 acres. You know, it's only 2 lots that were zoning as a trial. And depending on how we ultimately define the village residential district, if it does in fact get expanded. Obviously, there's a lot of pre-existing lots, and I think we want to take a look at them, see what sizes they are, and consider the potential for, either ADU, subdividing those lots, 20 years out, when the people who are living there now decide that they might want to sell their properties. And just revisit the question of lot size at a later time. I think this, we should look at this as a relatively short-term zoning procedure, or zoning, redefining or defining. Strictly for the purpose of allowing the town to create a demonstration project on lots that it currently owns. A housing demonstration.
I guess I get back to, the ultimate goal is to have a higher density number of units on those 2 properties.
Right,
Still confined by what the physical size of the 2 lots combined is right now. Because that's what you own. So. We're just, I have no problems with multifamily homes being there. Whatever number of units, apartments, I'm assuming it'll be apartments. Full-size homes, and you get less units on square footage area.
right. I mean, we're talking multifamily structures or apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's the way you gain density units per acre of land.
So I would prefer that if we got some ideas from developers and saying, here's the parcel location, here's the physical size of it. How many units could you put in there and still have room for parking and your setbacks?
And that's exactly what the select board did.
Right, but this is not what the select board's doing.
But the select board can't do that without a change to the zoning.
Because it's R1 limited. We have the acreage. So by current standards, what is it? About 2 acres total?
4 units.
Right, but they could get ideas and then, change the zoning to fit the ideas that were presented.
Well, I don't think you'll get,
It's what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
And I think in this case, the zoning needs to come first. Because who's gonna bother putting together a presentation, not knowing if, not a presentation, but a proposal, a development proposal, not knowing what the constraints of the zoning might be. And also, I think there's a time factor involved.
Well, see, I wonder about that also. I mean, maybe Kate can answer, because I haven't heard this discussion at any of the select board meetings or in the minutes of selling this property.
Kate, you want to address that? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely discussed selling this property more than once. And that is what was determined by, oh God, which committee is the name?
you have a fact.
Was it, yeah, municipal facility, thank you. So, boy, I'm like, there's so many letters on committee names now, I'm starting to lose track of them.
Yes.
So I think it's something that we committed to doing something with this property and obviously getting it cleaned out. We went through that step. The former fire chief did get it cleaned out. And the longer you leave it, the more likely it is to just collect junk again, right? It doesn't have a stated future purpose. So looking at RFP, and Jack was working on it. I don't know, is the RFP launched yet? Actually don't recall.
It's not, but we have a draft. We have a draft. I've been working.
I
with
would say
them on
I've
that.
seen the draft, but I didn't see the launch yet. Okay, so I was not able, I guess, to make the last select board meeting. So I'm expecting that we will be able to have that conversation. It's certainly something that I can address to him this coming Monday.
Okay. I know when the facility studies, this was brought up, but that's the last time I've seen any discussion outside of the planning board
Mhm.
on this property, so that's why I was wondering about the timeline. No.
Any other?
Yeah, no, I'm just questioning some, how well this would work as proposed, but
Another thing that remains to be seen too is what will the neighborhood say when they catch wind of this, which they will soon, I'm sure. So.
I mean, that is a relatively dense neighborhood anyway. It's populated by families with children and seniors largely. So I think definitely will be interesting to hear their feedback. That being said, they do have a lot of foot traffic that goes in and out of town, and that spot has been relatively unsightly. So depending on what the proposal is, they're probably going to have different reactions. And I think certainly we would have to, as a select board, make sure that they are obviously notified and have an opportunity to take a look at things if they so choose.
I think the exciting part is that the selectmen hold all the cards. They can say, sorry, developer, we were looking for something with solar on top
Yep.
to save the people money, and we want, I don't know,
That's a very good point.
whatever amenities there are,
Yeah.
as long as they sell money and can get it and make money on buildings, they will buy it and build it to our specifications.
When we were talking, David and Eric and I were chatting, we were talking about Twin Pines has done some really great projects around the Upper Valley and has some very attractive. And we were even talking about Ann's place right there on Route 4 next to
We're across the street.
yeah, across from the community building. How that one is like, was it 9 units in there?
I believe, no.
Is it more than that?
13?
And how unobtrusive it is. It just looks like a big house, you know? So, you know, I think there's definitely some really exciting possibility there, so.
I think the other thing that we haven't mentioned is there's no specific senior housing other than the older, oh gosh, I'm having a moment up off Anderson Hill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and one of the challenges in this community is that as people begin to look at retirement, a lot of them are in very large homes. Their family moves on, and there's no reason you can't keep your large home, but maybe you don't want to. There's nowhere to buy.
Yeah.
So, you know, this isn't necessarily going to be one kind of housing or another. People have the ability to come in with all kinds of different proposals, and it would be exciting to see like an age in place proposal. Yep. Where it might free up some housing to invite in, say, a larger family or working professionals, and still allow somebody who's a valued member of our community to stay in our town and participate.
Yeah. Yep.
That's good.
That's another one. Kate mentioned Norwich. There's down a little further down Main Street near the Norwich Police Station. There's a senior housing complex that I think has been very successful. My wife's grandmother lived there for 20 years. And really neat. I mean, it's great. It'd be great to do something for our seniors to try to give them someplace where they can afford to stay and, you know, obviously better design for them, you know.
I think there's a lot of really awesome possibilities, and I hope that the RFP will provoke some neat proposals and something that's a good fit for our community.
David has a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's see where this goes. You know, we gotta take this to public hearing. We gotta get it accepted by the people. You know, I think we ought to just let it go as it stands right there.
Anybody else have any comments?
Well, I
on
just,
this?
I mean, just one other thing I sort of question and is the five dwelling units are more requiring the site plan. I think that's, I would rather just leave it at the 3. But then you have some say in the matter. And especially if it's gonna, the select board is getting RFPs, and it really shouldn't be a big issue. But if you have 5 and they come in with 4, 4, 4, or something like that, and it's like, this is what we're building, and you have no say in that.
Not seeing how you're seeing. That.
Well, currently, the way this is worded is multi-family dwellings consisting of 5 or more dwelling units require site plan approval. So if they do 4 dwelling units per structure, there's no site plan review. And if they have 1 acre lots, it's going to be multiple separate lots with structures on them.
Well, we're talking about one specific lot of 2 acres.
No, this is 1 acre. The developer can say, I'm carving it up into 1 acre lot, according to this.
Then
You
he's
can
not
say
a
that,
qualified
and then-
buyer.
And then the select board is gonna say, sorry, we're not gonna accept that proposal. Even if you offer us $100,000 an acre, we're not gonna accept it, because that's not what we want on these lots as a town.
So
Sorry to yell.
No, but I don't see the select board going there. They see dollar signs. Sell the lot, here's the money.
That's
Move
not
on.
what I'm hearing from Kate.
Well,
I am not particularly lured by dollar signs. I live a very frugal life. So I think my life is a monument to the willingness to take a little bit of a risk and be a little bit different. So I'm fine with telling somebody that I think their proposal isn't a good fit for our community. And I see no reason for us to sell those to someone who's a bad fit. We would be better off saying no to every RFP that is a bad fit and selling them as multiple housing lots than we would be taking a bad fit.
actually, I think on this one, Kurt did identify, because we do just talk about the dwelling units. Do we need to say the lots containing more than 5? So if they put more than 5 on a lot, then we can't have multiple buildings of 4 and avoid site plan.
That's kind of what I'm, yeah, that's the intent.
Right, so, but do we need to include, lots containing more than 5 dwelling units?
I mean,
On a single lot.
it's sort of implicit, but,
It is.
because Kurt is bringing it up, that shows me that there's a different interpretation.
right, well, I've been on the board long enough to, and Dan has probably seen this more than I have. Someone coming in and saying, no, this is what this means, and it's like, you have a hard argument, say
Yeah,
no.
we need specificity.
Yeah,
So, yeah, first to be words with that.
I'll let you guys work it out.
Yeah, no, it's not about the dwelling units, but the number of units per lot.
Right.
Would it help you guys to see a copy of the RFP draft?
I think I can figure out, instead of tying it to the 5 or more dwelling units, to tie lots with, instead of tying it to the dwellings themselves, you have 5 or more dwelling units on a single lot.
Yeah, 5, just. say
I'll think about it, yeah.
five
Eric,
or- five or more.
Jack might be a good resource on wording as well.
Yeah,
Kate, what did you say? I didn't hear.
Jack might be a good resource to help on a little bit of that wording as well. He's pretty good on those items.
Sure. I personally would love to see the draft proposal. I don't think it's necessary for the writing of this ordinance draft, but I would
No,
love-
but I think it would be good so that you have in your mind when people are asking questions about generally why we are considering doing this and what the possibilities are, that you've seen it before at least. Rob, would you be willing to circulate that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Anything else on village residential?
No, it's gonna take me, I'm gonna.
All right, so let's move on. Master Plan Task Force. This past weekend was a marathon for many of us on task force. We had 2 live workshops of about 2.5 hours each, and 1 Zoom workshop, which went awfully close for 3 hours. We had I thought, a really good attendance for Saturday, Sunday event. I don't have the exact figures. I'm guessing there were about 25 on Saturday morning, a few less than 20 Saturday afternoon, and dozen people came on Sunday. Did we have about a dozen people on Sunday?
No, I think you had more like 20 people on Sunday because some had more than one person in the frame, right? I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not quite, don't quote me on it, but I feel like you were in the neighborhood of 20.
Okay, so, all in all, we probably had somewhere between 80 and 100 people attending. Most of them, from what I could tell, were either voters, residents, or property owners. Eric's son, who was a great contributor. We had Coralie, who wants bouncy house zoning. Oh, hi, Coralie. And,
Carly wants a splash pad and an aquatic center.
Yes.
okay, so we're definitely gonna zone for that. Somewhere way out on Lock Haven, right?
We have one of those. So, we have a cow pond.
You let your kids swim in a cow pond?
We aren't really that limiting of people's choices around here.
Okay. I guess you could charge admission. That could be another income stream. To the cow pond.
The insurance lady says no.
Oh, okay. So it was, I think, very, very successful. We had, some common themes come out, community building, places for people to gather. Focusing development primarily in the downtown village area. However, we wind up defining that as basically Main Street. There was, it was a visioning session, so there were a couple of, ideas that were kind of out in left field, but, definitely aspirational. And we also launched our community-wide survey, and I'm told that as of this evening, we have 100 or maybe slightly more than 100 online responses, which for 3 days, I think is pretty darn good. We will continue to push the survey. We'll have paper copies at various places around town, library, this building, town office, And where did we decide on the fourth one? Or maybe we have it?
I think we have.
Okay, so we have one other survey Dropbox that we have to figure out.
We can move around. Yeah.
What, Rob?
We can move it around.
Yeah, okay. Probably we want to close the survey out somewhere around Thanksgiving. At our last meeting, our consultant gave us a timeline and assignments of what has to be done by whom on what date in order to have a rough draft available in the spring. Hopefully, around town meeting, so we can distribute it there. But what we're looking for is a quality product, not trying to meet a deadline. So that's pretty much where we are, very briefly on the master plan. I think it's going really well. Brandy has injected a lot of new energy, so we are going. Next meeting is December 8th, because we are, I'm talking about this group here, not the master plan task force. Our next meeting is December 8th. We're going to take off Thanksgiving week because nobody wants to have a meeting the day before Thanksgiving. And it's almost 9 o'clock, so somebody want to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at pretty much 9 o'clock. Thank you, people. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
We'll see you in December.
Happy turkey.
You can get a turkey. It's short supply of
Are
turkey.
they in short supply?
You betcha.
The Bailey Farm and Lime has lots and lots of orders available.
Okay.
Everybody does like $8 or $9.
Bye, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
You're on mute, Dan. I can't hear you.
You gotta think about the alternate thing again.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
Getting some alternates?
Yeah, because I've got a feeling that Kurt's going on a long trip next year and I'm going on a long trip next year. We may not be there at the same time.
That's,
I'll be in and out.
Okay. I can put something in the next newsletter looking for some alternates.
Yeah.
Okay. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't